All right, welcome back. We continue with more news now. The Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the PAC, has unveiled what it terms its road to an Africanist Socialist Democracy. This was during its manifesto launch in Orlando East in Soweto recently. The PAC is one of the oldest liberation movements in the country. PAC President Mzwanele Nyhontso told members that the party is now in a better position to reclaim its glory in the political landscape, finding many challenges and leadership squabbles. So to get more of an understanding of that manifesto, we're going to be joined in studio by Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania National Chairperson Sbusiso Xaba. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon, it's great to be here.
Let's unpack the dynamics unfolding since your launch in early March this year, that 14-point plan. But if we get into the crux of the matter, a few pertinent points coming to the fore, including the decolonization or the reformation of our criminal justice system, land restoration, education for all, and just maintaining that Pan-Africanist, pan-unity ideology.
Yes, for us it's important to re-strengthen unity. And unity can be built by institutions. Therefore, if you see our manifesto, we talk about a reliable government, a government that people can depend on their social services. You see, currently we are being squeezed as individuals because we have to consume what we already paid for in our taxes. We pay for our schooling, we pay for our health, we pay for our security, whereas we should be getting those things with the tax that we already paid. So we're double paid as a nation because of the inefficiency of these institutions that have been weakened systematically by those who want to steal from them.
And so speaking about some of the other pointers as well, highlighting, you know, what more the important points coming to the fore, what else would you like to touch on?
Basically, it's the issue that you highlighted. We cannot have the economy that is functional if you don't have people that have their hands on deck. And to get people's hands on deck, there is one sector that is critical. That's a sector of agriculture. And the sector of agriculture requires land. The sector of mining requires land. Therefore, land to us remain the critical driver of the economy.
We'll unpack that a little bit further because I actually wanted to look at the issue of unity that was echoed by your president. And you know, obviously looking at the timing of it, looking at how much time has also passed. Questions about if this is a little bit too late, given, you know, what's transpired, but within the leadership itself, but also as we edge closer to elections. How would you respond to that?
I think we have overcome the internal matters. We're currently building a unity outside the PAC. You will see in all our events, we've got other parties that we work with, that we are close to. We want to have a minimum program with the people that have similar ideas on where the country should be going and where the continent should be going.
You're speaking about similar ideas and also just the PAC's relevance. And I wonder if you could speak to your offering in relation to AZAPO, in relation to the EFF, in relation to the ANC. I'm only asking this because a lot of the ideologies do stem from the PAC, and given the time that has passed, the seats in Parliament, and also what's at stake this time around, how are you going to stand out and be different?
We are happy about the phenomenal growth from an ideological point of view, from a philosophical point of view that we are experiencing now, that everyone says what we've been saying. In terms of differentiating ourselves, I think we've been quite reliable, we've been quite steady. So basically we depend on being trusted for being consistent in what we believe and advocating for. And the more people believe in it, the more we were able to show our differentiation. We've always said that we are looking forward to where we compete, who's going to implement Pan-Africanism better, unlike the current scenario where Pan-Africanism is looking for its space. So the increase of the number of parties that might be seen to be clouding our space is not a problem for us at all. In fact, it's a source of happiness for us.
And so as we look at the trajectory and just the policy formation, let's say in relation to the manifesto in 1959, and how it's still aligned very much in 2024. Talk to us a little bit more about that, but also on the issue of You know, if we anticipating some of the scenarios unfolding, government of national unity or coalitions, I mean, the ATM was at your manifesto launch. The PAC was at the EFF. You've been on record to say you work with Azapo, Al Jamaa as well coming to the fore. Unpack that a little bit more for us in terms of what those possibilities and probabilities could entail.
Basically, the possibilities are a minimum program for us. We will work with anyone who has a program that agrees to what we see as a minimal program, that we can work together. We are a party that seeks to govern. We are not going to election to be an opposition party. We are going to govern. If the community does not give us, the voters don't give us the 51% we deserve, we still are open to discussing with others on how this country should be governed. I think with the experience that we have with our cadreship, having been in the military, in the justice system, we have a number of well-placed individuals who have served the country with distinction. I think that we can make a sterling input into shaping the direction of this country.
And so speaking of which, what about reports suggesting that you would also be willing to work with the MK party? Any thoughts or comments on that?
I think the MK party has also talked about the issue of land being fundamental to theirs. So it basically put them closer to us. So the minimal program can be formulated with them. We are not dogmatic in the way that we think of ourselves. Therefore, we will not box ourselves to anyone, but we are willing to engage. And the way that coalition are assessed, we think that it has been unfair. The coalition has been successful in local government. Coalition have opened the information that was hidden by those who keep it by themselves. So when people think that they are seeing a rapture and they are seeing bigger things, it's in fact a bowl being popped. You are seeing what was already there inside. It's not that it's been created by coalition, but coalition are exposing it. And we're looking forward to coalitions in national government as well, to expose those things that are happening behind dark doors.
It's a fair point, but it is also at the expense of citizens to date. And we've seen how it's impacted service delivery. So there will also be questions about that. But I actually also just want to look at the PAC to date with its one seat in parliament and what it's done. To date, some of the issues it's raised, how it's, taken Parliament to task on some of the issues as well. Talk us through about, that progress over the past 30 years.
We have taken government through the arms deal. If you remember, we led the issue of the arms deal, the corruption thereof. That was led by the PAC. We've also, in the later years, taken the struggle of women, widows in particular, that are being exploited by the tax system that is currently making them suffer after their husband or their partners have left because they change the bracket, they get taxed higher, they find themselves with major penalties. It's quite a nightmare what you see, particularly the teaching field, with the number of widows that have been affected by the tax regime that we have. And the PAC has taken that, both to assist them to campaign, but also to expose that issue. The issue of veterans, military veterans, we've been working very hard. It's not a surprise that the ministry was not there in the beginning, but through our campaigning, the ministry was created, and the ministry has done some minimal. We are not happy with the way that it's performing. We hold it to account in Parliament through the Defence Committee.
And just looking at some of the other changes or questions about our current state as a democracy, I wonder if we could get your thoughts on doing away with the provincial government. So we're looking at national government vis-a-vis local government and their roles. What's the discussion? What's the crux of the matter on that front, your stance in relation to that?
Our stance is twofold. One is cost, one is cessation. When you create the provinces like we are created on a tribal basis, we are fomenting a scenario of cessation at one stage when people are not happy. So as the PAC, we always advocated for a unitary state in Azania without provinces. The second part is the issue of cost. You have those blue lights that are totally unnecessary. You need administrators at that level. You don't need another legislative arm. You hardly see any court disputes that are being carried about issues that come from ordinances that are produced by legislature. So legislature has no impact, no effect, but it's at extremely high cost. Thinking about almost 400 MPLs that are being paid, 100 MECs that have blue lights, and bodyguards and housing and those benefits. That can be rechanneled to health and education and create a totally different country.
Which is obviously part of your 14-point plan. I also want to look forward to tomorrow. We're obviously going to commemorate the Sharpeville massacre. As the PAC, talk us through what's unfolded in relation to it also being the year of Robert Sobukwe. What's coming to the fore? What are some of the activities as well that we can expect in terms of going forward?
Firstly, we've been happy with the academia. The academia has done a good job. There have been a number of public lectures that have been organized by university around the Sobukwe theme and his legacy. So as the Robben Island heritage has done its fair share. So we appreciate that. As we are building towards tomorrow, you'll see that we'll continue with the theme, regardless that it's election time, but you'll see more than us in our event, because we believe in that unity that they were fighting for in 1960. We still hold steadfast that we should be totally anti-racism. There should not be multiracialism in this country. We should work to non-racialism. Every citizen must be judged on their own merit, on anything being good or bad, not as a group, not as a subgroup, and we move towards a new social order, which is Africanist Socialist Democracy.
All right, we'll get into the meaning of social cohesion in this diverse nation in just a bit. Just looking at, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, and I just imagining or reimagining if he was alive at this point, or if he woke up and he had to look at the state of affairs in South Africa 30 years into our democracy, the state of affairs of the PAC as well. What do you think he would be observing and commenting? How would he react?
With society, he will be disappointed. He will be disappointed because as African people, we should have been better. We should have understood by now that we have taken our country, that we are governing. But we still sit as complainants, we sit on the side. We have not taken as citizenry and as those that we call leaders. We have not taken this element of being in the driving seat of our institutions. So he will be disappointed in that for us. However, we got an opportunity to make it better for him by retaking what is supposed to be our responsibility: self-reliance, self-determination, employ ourselves, and stop looking for foreign investors who should employ us. In terms of the PAC, also it falls in that category. It should have done better. He will really give us a whipping. However, I think that we have taken corrective actions, and those corrective actions are paying off. We hope that the voters also see the same picture, that we have institutionalized, we are running ourselves much better as an institution, we are ready to govern.
And so speaking of which, we're questioning if a comeback is on the cards of sorts in this election. And given the turnout in Soweto, which is also alluded to by your president, saying that 65 years ago, you're now returning to your roots since its formation. What was your expectations about the turnout? How do you think you fared on that front as an indicative of what's to come as well for the future? Paint that picture for us, especially those who weren't privy to listening in or couldn't attend the launch.
We have moved out of the halls that we used to be in. That was an arena. It was full. That's what we intended to do. We are on an upward direction. In the coming elections, we will join others in the stadiums. But we have gone a step much higher. We have not attracted such crowds since 1994 in terms of what we brought in Orlando. So we are happy. And that was only numbers that are coming out of the Gauteng province. And if we had buzzed people across the country, it would have been a different story. And we're working on those resources because we want to be funded by those that believe in what we believe, non-racialism.
And so speaking about identity politics, which has come to the fore as well, I wonder if we're going to paint this, play with an imaginary crystal ball and look at possibilities and probabilities as well. What are your expectations going in from here until you've got one seat? What are you hoping to achieve going forward? We're speaking about that comeback on the card. So really just tell us what that looks like for you.
That is difficult to say, but looking at the local government, we're able to double ourselves. So we are hoping to do much better than that with the momentum that we gained since then. Well, I think we are the only party that really showed in local government a significant increase from where we were in terms of representation and in terms of votership. And mind you, we were accepted on last minute. Therefore, we could not register all the municipalities. But with the municipalities that we entered already, it showed that we were on our way up.
I want to look at the issue of social cohesion because that has also come to the fore. Earlier on, we also speaking to Professor about that and obviously fostering this unity and diversity in South Africa. And I wonder just from your vantage point, 30 years into democracy, some of the strides that have been taken. I mean, South Africa exists because it is standing on the backbone of what has been done. Talk us through about what are those success stories as well during this 30-year dispensation.
The success story is that you are seeing more, particularly on the social media, people that you don't expect to speak African languages, speaking African languages. That's a step forward. So from a people element, there is that moving forward. However, from a group perspective, there is still a lot of undermining separation that is unnecessary. As the PAC, we really call on our citizenry to take a step of having one culture because we become a nation not only because we live in the same geographic area, but because we have adopted the same culture. And that cannot be a culture of Europe. That cannot be the culture of England because it colonized us. It should be our own culture that talks to our own environment, that talks to our own challenges. And that's a way to go, to mature culturally and blend with each other, not assimilation. We don't look at adopting other people's culture, but we believe in what Lembede taught us, to yearn for a new Africa that is different. We don't want to go back, and we don't want to go to Europe or East. We want to go forward.
You're speaking about African hegemony, you're speaking about Afrocentric approaches, Pan-African approaches. And so moving away from South Africa, let's talk to the continent. And let's look at the issues at hand. What role you aim to also play on that front, given the Pan-Africanist movement as large, or in relation to the diaspora? Currently,
I think we have a great opportunity presented by online presence. We are able to consistently participate in other communities outside South Africa. I can say that almost every Sunday evening, as the PAC, we are talking with Africans in diaspora about how do we combat racism, how do we strengthen solidarity, how do we inform them about opportunities at home if they want to come back. Because Africans in diaspora must have a right of return without question. They did not go there voluntarily, they were stolen there. Therefore, their comeback becomes necessary as the opportunities present themselves. And as a PAC, that's a role that we've been playing. And we've been playing a role of expanding and deepening policy postures of theirs in different arenas. We are just coming out of the decade of the African people. We played a big role there to assist our partners to comprehend what is that and to be able to play an active role in direct engagement in the United Nations, because the United Nations had set up a specialized committee that deals with issues of African people. Although from our colonizers we did not get as much as what we needed to get, building up to the Durban conference that was there on anti-racism stance. Which
also speaks to the sentiments by Molefe, who says the story of the world is incomplete without Africa's version. So you're speaking about restoring agency and telling that African story. Also just the history, being on the right side of history and telling our own stories as well. Perhaps as we come back to South Africa in conclusion, I want to look at issues of load shedding, water crisis. I mean, there's a number of issues that have come to the fore that directly affect South Africans at large. There have been wish lists echoed. There have been promises that have been made. That 14-point plan also outlined that. I wonder when people begin to question how you are going to do this. Everyone is speaking, there's lip service. How? How would you like to reassure South Africans at large?
Brain Molefe gave us a blueprint. It can happen. It's by choice that we are in load shedding. It's by choice that we have water shortages. People rather steal the money instead of repairing the plants that are supposed to be repaired. You cannot be sitting on coal that is 200 years or more and want to play around with technologies that you don't produce. Before the transition happened, you stabilize. The PAC will firstly stabilize, open Komarti, complete Mudupi, and because there was, for example, an Indian company that said, I'm empowering you. I'm empowering your engineers. I'm going to work with them. I'm not going to work alone. But it was kicked out in favor of Chancellor House, the company that is owned by the ANC, with people that were not ready to do what is supposed to be done. So bring back the proper expertise. Expertise are there. There are good engineers in this country. They will produce volumes and volumes within the UP and Stellenbosch and UJ. A lot of postgraduate engineers are graduating every semester. So there is no shortage of people. It's a will of politicians that is blocking service delivery.
Well, we have to leave that conversation there. There's a lot more to unpack. I think just in conclusion from my side, I wanted to look at, speaking of the issue of restoring our agency at large and, research about Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe finding his voice and that voice being released. How far are we on that front? Will we ever hear his voice?
The voice is hidden. It's hidden or deleted permanently because people feared that once people hear the truth and reflect themselves differently, get out of the mentality that apartheid put us on, because that's our major complaint with the current scenario, is that we are stuck in the apartheid mentality. Let's rupture and get to a new mentality that Sobukwe was calling us in for. That's why that voice is hidden. And as the PAC will continue to campaign for that voice to be loud, and we can hear it now, even outside the PAC, screaming louder, particularly beautifully on the social media.
Thank you for joining us on the SABC at this hour and for weighing in. We'll leave that conversation there for now. National Chairperson of the PAC, Sbusiso Xaba, really just speaking all things manifesto. We know that various political parties have launched their talking points. Independent candidates have also released their wish lists and promises just to woo voters. But obviously, we're looking at the hits and the misses, the gaps that still pervade. We're obviously looking at democracy, which is all about choice. We on the SABC speaking to some of these leaders, looking at what they are offering, unpacking that, and really how it's going to benefit South Africa at large. Again, thank you to Mr. Xaba for joining us here on the SABC and for weighing in on the PAC's manifesto launch.